Hi everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here taking a look at the DRF Thursday race of the day, which comes in Louisville, Kentucky. Churchill Downs. Race 7 is a first level allowance race going the mile to 16th distance for the 3-year-olds and up runners on the dirt. Field of 9 entered here, Mike, and there's some talent in this field for a first level allowance race, particularly in the form of the number 1, Hop Sing, who's coming off a big effort at this level when he just barely lost at Saratoga last time.
Yeah, ran well last time. I thought I liked the aggressive ride he got in that spot too from the outside draw. Now he's got the rail, which feels like a great post position for him to leave from here. I thought he was the horse to beat, and I do feel like if he runs his last race, they're probably not going to beat him. But there are some horses drawn towards his outside that have a lot of potential. I think one of these horses could really move forward in here.
Yeah, this field is actually bookended by horses coming off 90-plus Beyer performances at Saratoga. That also applies to the number 9, Navajo Warrior, who won his last race at a lower level. But between those two runners in the starting gate, Mike, there are horses who have upside, have shown potential at different times in the past, particularly some 3-year-olds in that category. So it's going to be interesting to see who can take a step forward in this race and potentially get on terms with that morning line favorite. Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this 7th race on Thursday. And it does appear that there's a little bit of speed in here. You know, the game plan with the number 1, Hop Sing, is probably going to be to get towards the front end. I don't think he needs to be on the lead outright to have his best chance. They kind of had to show that aggression, as Mike indicated, breaking from an outside post last time. Drawing the rail might give them some more options here. The number 7, Fort Nelson, he's stretching out from sprint, so he is one that I would imagine will go forward.
Yeah, I can see that horse showing speed. I mean, the good news for Hop Sing, and I think you're right, that it's not a horse that they have to come out of their running to try to make the lead with, but it's a great post for him. And he does have that kind of natural speed to run to the first turn. And even if he doesn't make the lead, he can wind up in a really good trip here.
With this being the DRF Thursday race of the day, you can get free past performances for this race, just like you can for every single DRF race of the day. Just head on over to that race of the day page at DRF.com when you're signed into your account, or create a new account, and you get access to free all access past performances. Let's go through this field from the rail out, beginning with that morning line favorite, the number 1, Hop Sing, and we'll take a look at that race that we were referencing. He's that gray horse leading the field into the stretch, broke from post 8, had to be hustled to the front end. He did moderate the pace once he got there. This was a race that was mostly dominated towards the front end without a lot of closing going on behind him. But Mike, the horse that runs him down here, No Bien Nimal, a horse that was making his first start in the U.S. and came back to win the Greenwood Cup last week at Parks, not with a speed figure improvement, actually regressed a few points to win that race, but that was going a mile and a half, and just felt like Hop Sing, if he repeats that effort that we saw at Saratoga, he's going to be a handful in here.
Yeah, I looked at it the same way. I mean, he's a horse. I have a lot of questions about him. I feel like basically all of his races are good. You sort of pointed out that even though they had to leave running last time from the outside post, I still feel like he kind of had all the best of it, because once he did clear the lead into the first turn, they didn't really challenge him up the backstretch. I thought he was sort of maybe on the opposite end of those kind of tactics 2 starts back when he was beaten by Contrary Thing, and they didn't go aggressively with him that day, and the pace just really never came back to him. He's the horse to beat, David, and I think he did run well last time. I have a question for you. Is this horse any good? I've watched all of his races, and I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I don't know if this horse is any good.
He's kept some good company. When you go through those form lines, you see names like Stars and Stripes, who looks like an exciting 3-year-old for Bill Mott, Strategic Focus, who was the beaten favorite in the Curlin, some 3-year-olds who have shown potential. This horse has not shown a ton of progression over his recent races, but he's consistent. He runs well. It's hard to get him out of the trifecta, I'll say that. But does he have to win this race? I don't know about that. He certainly has had his chances. The number 2, Jonathan Song, is a horse that's going to have to run faster if he's going to be competitive with a horse like Hop Sing that we just talked about. But he is lightly raced, making only the 4th start of his career. Just broke his maiden last time out at Horseshoe Indy. That was his first time stretching out. And he had some excuses in the first couple starts of his career, some trouble early in those races. I think while he did win impressively last time, Mike, that was not a particularly strong field that he was beating, and I don't know how much credit I want to give him, even as good as he looked in that last race.
That's what's holding me back too. It just feels like he did not beat a good field, especially when you sort of go back through Formulator and look at the horses he was running against. He got a perfect trip in that race too. Yeah. But man, he really did look good winning that race. So I do feel like there's something there with this horse for a really dangerous trainer. Maybe he'll move forward again in this spot. I won't be surprised if he does that, but he's going to have to move forward quite a bit. He's facing a pretty good field here.
Number 3, Maximum Promise, a horse that was briefly on the Kentucky Derby trail earlier this year before trying a variety of surfaces. And this horse has had an interesting career trajectory up until this point, trying the dirt, winning a maiden race very impressively at Ellis Park during his 2-year-old season. And since coming back as a 3-year-old, he ran the Lecomte, then switched to synthetic, then recently to turf. Again, some of the best turf horses in the 3-year-old crop right now, like Zulu Kingdom, a horse over from Europe, some horses that switched to turf in Hamilton in that tough Kentucky Downs race, the Nashville Derby last time out. And while he didn't run great in those turf races, Mike, I am intrigued by him switching back to dirt here because this is the kind of horse that he was supposed to be all along. And why can't he improve on that Lecomte performance where he was coming off a layoff and didn't run that badly?
Yeah, and I wonder too if you might get a little speed out of this horse early. It'll be interesting to see how they ride this horse. I know he hasn't been showing it on the other surfaces, but he did show really good speed when he broke his maiden at Ellis Park. I mean, maybe he's just not that horse anymore. That's actually the race that interests me more than the Lecomte, because listen, I know it was only a maiden race. He looked awful good winning that race on the lead. He just absolutely dominated that field. It was a sloppy track. It was off a little bit of a layoff. It was way up in class for this horse too, right off a maiden win. I actually didn't think he ran well at all in the Lecomte. I thought he was a suck up fifth in that race. He really didn't do any running after Brian Hernandez gave him the Brian Hernandez trip. He brought him right to the rail. He never left it. He got a clean run through the stretch, and he just picked up some pieces. I don't think he ran as well as, fifth, beaten less than 3 lengths makes it appear.
Yeah, I don't know how good he is either, but I've seen horses like this improve when they get into the right spots, and this might be a more appropriate spot for him. We will note Brian Hernandez Jr. will not be riding this horse. He was injured last weekend and is going to be out for several weeks. The number 4, Whiskey Shot, a horse coming off a maiden victory, but you've got to go all the way back to November of his 2-year-old season to see that victory. He's a horse who, being a good horse that looked promising at the time, Burning Glory, and got a really wide trip in getting to the front end there and was game to hold that horse off in the late stages. He had progressed nicely up until that point, and Mike, why can't that 75 buyer that he earned at the end of his 2-year-old season turn into an 85 or a 90 at this point as a 3-year-old?
Exactly how I looked at him. His 2 final races as a 2-year-old, they were both good. I mean, I thought his race at Keeneland was a good effort there, just sort of staying on at the end behind Bracket Buster, who's actually turned out to be really good too. I mean, there was a point coming to the stretch of that race at Keeneland where it looked like he might not be around at the end, but he kept coming through the stretch there, and it's actually a clear third, actually gaining ground at the end. I liked that performance. I liked his maiden win even more, where he's just wide around the track, around 2 turns right here at Churchill Downs. I don't love the layoff, and maybe this isn't the right spot to bet him, but he's going to be a price in here with Lasix on, and I think he's got a chance to be pretty good.
Off layoffs of 6 months or more, trainer Rudy Brissett is 15 for 54 with a $2.89 ROI. So this is a barn that excels with horses coming back off long layoffs. The number 5, First Player, a horse who's coming off a reasonably competitive performance last time. He was no match for David of Athens, who won that race impressively, but that horse came back to be very disappointing in the Pennsylvania Derby last weekend, and that was the best performance of First Player's career to pick up a distantly beaten second in that race. And I just have a little trouble projecting further upside for this horse, Mike, and he's going to need another step forward.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the last race, at least if you go by figures, is the best race he's ever run, and I'm not betting him off of that performance here. I don't really like any of his other races.
The number 6, Cole Moon, was visually impressive, winning a starter allowance race 2 back at Churchill Downs, going the 1-turn, 7.5 furlong distance. But he did get a delicious pace to close into that day as they were hitting up front. And he made this big move around the far turn to win going away at the end as he just got the perfect setup and took advantage of it. And going back to some of his prior dirt races, Mike, if they don't really stack up against this field from a speed figure standpoint, and he's another one where I wonder if his ceiling is high enough to be competitive against a field like this.
Yeah, his other dirt races just aren't good. I know that the race 2 back, I guess it gives him some kind of a chance in here. Maybe they'll go fast in front of him again and he'll be able to take advantage. But really, that's the only race that makes him even mildly competitive. And I wouldn't even bet him off of that one.
I'm pretty intrigued by the number 7, Fort Nelson, coming into this circuit for trainer Bill Mott after having run his first 3 races in New York. And he returned from a long layoff to break his maiden 2 back at Saratoga, a game victory, chasing a stablemate. He showed a lot of early speed, running that rival down, holding off the hyped Worthy Charge at the end of that race. That 3rd place finisher has since come back to win and finish second in allowance race with buyers of 96 and 92. So that was a legitimate 86 figure that Fort Nelson earned off the layoff. And last time out, Mike, he drew the rail. There was a lot of speed in that allowance race. He got outrun to the front end. When I watched that race, Fort Nelson just looked like a horse that was not comfortable racing inside of horse. He sort of took himself out of that position coming around the far turn. But what I liked about that race was that once he got into the clear in the stretch, he never gave up. And he was actually coming back at the end and outclosed some horses that were trying to launch late runs in that race to get back up for fourth at the end. When I watch this horse run, he's got this big long stride on him. He's got a pedigree that says the distance should be okay. I won't be surprised when he actually is more comfortable going a longer distance.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to leave him open here too. If I'm being honest, I don't really like any of his races so far, but I do like him stretching. He's got a great pedigree. This horse is really bred to be a nice horse. And you've already pointed out, like when he broke his maiden off the layoff at Saratoga, it's not a race that I liked when I first went through it, but he did run well there. I think the runner-up has a chance. His stablemate, I think he has a chance to be good. The third place finisher obviously has a chance to be good. So I probably didn't give that win enough credit. I don't love him in here, but if he's going to be around that morning line price, I'm afraid of him.
The number 8, Domenici, is a bit of a wild card in this race because you go back to last summer at Santa Anita and Del Mar, he was running some buyers that make him very competitive in this field, a series of 90-plus speed figures. Things went awry when he tried Muth and the Shared Belief, probably a spot that was too ambitious for him. And since then, he's had trouble getting back on track, had trouble putting races together. He was beaten at one of the contenders at Pleasanton 2 back and came back off a layoff on the turf at Del Mar last time. He's not a turf horse, so he's supposed to do better on dirt here, but it's a little surprising to see him now show up on a completely different circuit, just with so many questions to answer.
Yeah, and I really respect this trainer. And so, we'll see what he gets out of this horse here as they try to sort of get him back on track going turf to dirt. Maybe they were just using that as a prep last time to switch him over to dirt again. And I know he's got figures, David, but I feel like he's a little bit cheap when I start picking through his running lines. Yeah. And he also wants to be forward. And I think 2 of his main rivals in this race, maybe 3, they also want to be forward. So he's got to be better than those horses. And I just don't think that he is.
Some of those buyers, too, when you look them up in DRF Formulator, they appear a little flimsy. Some horses that ran 90-plus buyers along with him in those races have come back and not gotten close to those numbers in subsequent starts. The number 9, Navajo Warrior, he's coming off a couple of 90-plus buyers recently, and they look pretty legit. I mean, he was a horse that beat a decent starter allowance field, 2 back at Santa Anita, switched barns, came into the Safi Joseph stable last time at Saratoga, faced another starter allowance race at the same level, got the job done, winning impressively. We'll take a look at the stretch run of this race as he delivers as the 3-5 favorite. Now, Mike, I don't love the field that he's beating here, and he got a very good trip in doing so, but you have to be somewhat impressed with the turn of foot that he puts in to put this field away through the late stages. I just wonder if the trip is going to work out as well here, drawing post 9 with a short run to the clubhouse turn, going this mile and the 16th distance against foes that just are way tougher.
Yeah, it's a pretty significant move up in class, I think, for this horse. I don't want to knock him too much because I do think he's in really good form right now. His last 2 wins, actually, they're both really, really nice efforts for this horse. So maybe he's just gotten good because there's another one, he's been racing pretty cheaply throughout his career, even though he's mostly been competitive. So I'm not sure exactly how good he is, but I don't want to knock him because his recent form is good.
Let's go to our picks for this DRF Thursday race of the day. And Mike, I see you're going for that horse coming off a long layoff, and I have him 4th. I respect him. I don't know how much improvement I can project for him in this race because he is going to take a big step forward, but he certainly has the most upside of anybody in here.
That's why I took him in this race. That combined with the price he's going to be. I mean, I sort of understand that Hop Sing is probably a clear horse to be in here. I just don't know if I think that horse is any good, David. I really don't want a short price on him. It doesn't mean that I have to bet against him, and maybe I won't doing that. But if I'm going to bet against him, I'm going to do it with a horse who I do really feel like is, a little bit disguised. I think Whiskey Shot has a chance to actually be a lot better than he looks on paper, and he should be a price in here.
Yeah, and I'll say, and I think you agree, Mike, I don't think you're getting 5-2 on Hop Sing. I could see it being even money in this race off the last race, and I don't know if he has to win this race at that kind of price. I believe the number 7, Fort Nelson, can improve going a longer distance. He's got the pedigree behind him. He's got the physical attributes to say longer should be better, and maybe this pace doesn't get so hot if he's able to clear to the front end. We'll see how that all works out, but he is a horse that I do believe can take a step forward here. 7-1-3-4 for me and 4-1-9-3 for Mike in the DRF Thursday race of the day. Race 7 at Churchill Downs. Good luck if you're playing the races later this week.